Welcome into the Awesemo MMA Strategy Show. We're here to get you ready for Saturday's UFC Vegas number 47. Of course, I am Jason Floyd. We are sponsored by Prize Picks. We'll talk about Prize Picks a little later on the show because there were some numbers over at Prize Picks that definitely stuck out to me. Or we're talking about fight time, significant strikes, takedowns. Definitely, we'll talk about Prize Picks come up here later on in the show. Of course, if you got any questions on the fights, be sure to line those up in the chat or also in our Discord chat as well. We'll get to those as we do go on. But of course, as always here on Awesemo MMA coverage, I am joined by the fighter, Pete Rogers Jr. Pete, can I please get a Pete the Heat cribs on your IG like I saw Sean Strickland do?
Maybe, but I don't know if it'd get as many clicks as that Sean Strickland one did. That was quite the experience. If you listened and watched that, he's such an odd character, and the UFC is running with it, and they understand that his weirdness is somewhat like clickbait. So they're utilizing it. They put out a piece on their Instagram today about their censor, like him going through different nicknames, and the joke was they basically censored him for about 3 minutes straight because every word out of his mouth is a swear.
Bro, like some of the I talked about last time on my podcast about some of the tremendous lines that he had in this one.
Yeah.
He's walking to his kitchen, holds up a bottle of lube, and says, "Never have too much lube." Then he goes to the kitchen counter where he has 3 guns, and he talks about what each gun is for. One of them mentioning about if he's walking to a mailbox and someone comes up on him. And then first off, the other one was he goes into the bathroom where I guess he's got a little issue flushing the toilet. And so he lifts up the thing, pushes it down, puts his hand in the water, doesn't even wash his hands. And then he goes to his bedroom, and then he goes, "Bed frames is for expletive losers."
Yeah, this guy, man, he's developed a personality. I just think he's somewhat of a lunatic, and he's embracing it. Very, very weird, extremely talented fighter. But as far as just a person, he's a very, very odd individual. And his cleanliness would definitely not fly at my gym. Yeah, he would be probably kicked out before he started.
Yeah, man, that was, if you've not seen that video out there, it's on his Instagram. Be sure to check that out. Of course, be sure to hit that thumbs up button right here on YouTube. Of course, we're going to be breaking down all of these fights. Of course, you're not subscribed to Awesemo. Be sure to do that. And of course, if you're not an Awesemo Plus member, you want to get a little peek what's behind the paywall. Today's free premium data and tools are NBA ownership rankings and NHL player rankings. Of course, we also have our monthly podcast giveaway. Just subscribe to our podcast channel and leave a 5-star review with your Awesemo username or Twitter handle to be entered in a free month of Awesemo Plus Platinum. Of course, you want to have that, especially Pete, on a card like this. Like, to me, like, look, this is not a sexy card on paper. I mean, right. Solid main event, no question about it. Mm-hmm. But this is just, it's not a sexy card. So, like, this is one of those ones. It's still an opportunity for us to make money on DraftKings, FanDuel, Prize Picks, but it's just not a sexy card, but a great main event.
Yeah, I mean, I like the main event. There are some spots that we definitely want to target throughout, some live betting spots. In general, though, I don't really care who's fighting. Like for Bellator cards or whatnot, there's fight tape to watch, there's money to be made, and there's always an edge. So thanks for tuning into the show. Can't wait to break down some of the fights, and then on Saturday break them down even further after watching the weigh-ins.
Of course, main event will be Jack Hermansson and Sean Strickland. Sean Strickland, 8,800 over on DraftKings, 7,400 for Hermansson. Don't have FanDuel salaries as we do this show. We'll talk about FanDuel on Saturday for a live before lock. And Pete, as I think about this fight, to me, it comes down to how does this fight play out? Can Sean Strickland keep the fight on the feet, or can Jack Hermansson get this thing to the ground?
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty simple. I think that Sean Strickland is going to want to keep this upright on the feet so that he can brawl with Jack Hermansson. Jack Hermansson's a serviceable striker when he needs to be, but everything that he does standing up is to set up his takedowns and set up his excellent submission grappling and vicious ground and pound arsenal. So I think that, he could struggle trying to find takedowns against Sean Strickland, because I do think that he's a well-rounded mixed martial artist. As the fight does go on, we will have to see how their cardios check out. But honestly, I kind of view this fight, and I've seen it play, similar stylistic matchups play out where Jack Hermansson can get bullied at times and can get, pieced up at times and end up TKO'd. I think that's what I'm somewhat predicting. Even if it's not a TKO, I think that Sean Strickland should be the A side in this fight as long as it remains on the feet. I'm going to get to a ton of exposure to it just because of Sean Strickland's, resurgence back in the UFC after, a brief hiatus dealing with that horrific injury. In the Uriah Hall fight, he scored 144 points and he went 5 rounds. So I do think that there is plenty of potential. The 8,800 price tag is warranted. Jack Hermansson at 7,400, if you want to just, equate it to value, he is one of the best value plays on the slate because if he gets you down, his top control and his vicious ground and pound, he can beat anybody within the division. And he's got really, really sneaky head and arm chokes and guillotines from all different angles. So with all that being said, I'm favoring Strickland pretty heavily in the matchup. But this is MMA, man. Like, I would actually love to see Jack Hermansson take down Sean Strickland and beat him into oblivion. I would like that. I think he needs to get humbled a little bit. But Strickland 8,800 sounds like a great play for me.
Yeah, one of the questions we got over in Discord before the show was from Cash Max 7, was said basically saying, does Strickland have star power, star potential? Look, I think the UFC is going to want to see if they can clean up the edge of Sean Strickland there. But to me, like, it's one of those things, and my co-host of my podcast, he brought up a great line last night where he goes, when a fighter is kind of becoming that star, he works your way into your Twitter algorithm. When they show you those tweets they think you should like. See a lot of Sean Strickland tweets over the past couple of days.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, he's just not, he's not politically correct, and I don't really know how much the UFC can really change him. Obviously, they're going to want to have him avoid saying certain, silly things, but that's why they got the censor, the censor bleep button, and I think they're going to need to use that whenever Sean Strickland's around the microphone.
Yeah, no question about it, but I'm with you. I like Sean Strickland in the matchup. Now, the co-main event, we got Punahele Soriano, 8,600, taking on Nick Maximov, 7,600. This is kind of, once again, a clash of styles here, Pete. Where if you're Punahele Soriano, it's about keeping this fight on the feet and not getting into a jiu-jitsu matchup with Nick Maximov. But here's a question I have. This fight gets to the third round. Whose cardio do you trust?
Yeah, I'd probably trust Nick Maximov's cardio a little bit more. But with all that being said, it's a small sample size within the UFC, and also in a fight where he was met with some resistance, but not like a ton of resistance and having to deal with a ton of adversity in that fight. I think that Punahele Soriano is a very, very dangerous fighter within the division. His previous performance somewhat shocked me because, yes, he's an early finisher, and you always worry about an early finisher getting stretched out for 15 minutes because they're so used to getting in and getting out, getting paid pretty quickly. So as the fight was stretched out, he looked absolutely exhausted. Now, I do know that he has excellent minds surrounding him. So I would imagine that he would come in better shape, that they would make some camp adjustments to make sure that he does not gas out. But I'll tell you what, some fighters are not made to go 15 minutes, and some fighters are made to go, under 1.5 rounds. And Punahele Soriano definitely has the capabilities of finishing anybody within the division. He's also a pretty talented defensive wrestler and offensive wrestler. So I think his hips can definitely help him in a situation right here against Nick Maximov, who's not even a serviceable striker, if I'm being honest. It's a work in progress. Yeah. But his jiu-jitsu and his grappling overall is just unbelievable. And in his previous bout, he shot 15 takedown attempts. Now, that is an impressive work rate and will test anybody's cardio regardless of the shape you're in. So I view this fight as like an extremely sneaky fight to target. I feel like a lot of people are going to want to get to the Punahele Soriano at 8,600. I am leaning in Punahele Soriano's, direction just because of the UFC tenure to this point where I've seen more in the cage. I can trust him a little bit more than Nick Maximov. But I do have concerns surrounding his cardio. Nick Maximov, if he gets anybody down, is live to pull off a submission win, get a ton of control time, win a decision even. But as that fight went on against Cody Brundage, you did see that Brundage had some success when he was able to really put his foot down and defend some takedowns and mix in some ground and pound. So this is a sneaky fight. As far as like underdogs this week, you have to be pretty selective. I don't hate getting to Nick Maximov lightly, but I am still favoring Punahele Soriano. 8,600, I think, is fair for a guy who can defend takedowns and work towards a finish.
I would say on the betting side of the main event and co-main event, looking at those prop bets of Maximov and Hermansson to win by submission, I think are prop bets to kind of pay attention to this week here. But I mean, look, every week on the show, Pete, one of the things you always say is you got to be looking at those underdogs in the main event and co-main event.
Yeah, for sure. So I always prioritize main event and co-main event underdogs. And like MMA betting is different than MMA DFS, right? Like if I'm torn on a fight, then I'm probably not going to take a large stand on one fighter in regards to betting. But for DFS, you can somewhat split your exposure and get the different variations and combinations of lineups for if you think a fight's going to be close, or you can see it going one-way traffic for either one of these guys. If you're heavily favoring a favorite or whatnot, obviously you don't want to get to the underdog. But in a situation like this where the co-main event could be competitive, I have no issues getting to either side.
Next up, we've got Rakhmonov and Harris. Rakhmonov, 9,000, 7,200 for Carlson Harris. Obviously, Pete, when you talk about the prospects to pay attention on this card, Rakhmonov to me is the guy that immediately jumps off the paper.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, Shavkat Rakhmonov is just an absolute finisher. And his opponent, Carlson Harris, is a pretty damn talented fighter as well. And outside of his age, he would be labeled as a prospect. He's just kind of he's broken through within the UFC with two fantastic finishes over Christian Aguilera and Impa Kasanganay. Both guys that are pretty tough. And we thought that they were lower level within the UFC. I know a lot of people had Impa Kasanganay pretty highly regarded. But this is going to be a hell of a fight. I almost think that skill set wise that this should be the co-main event, just because you have two incredibly talented fighters in all areas. Shavkat Rakhmonov is a good striker, hits hard, has sneaky chokes. His finishing ability is pretty fascinating. Carlson Harris, you saw powerful punches, also really sneaky chokes. So good anaconda chokes. I just really like this fight, and I'm interested to see if they take a more cautious approach just because of the respect for one another. If they do, then obviously this fight's not going to probably make it into the optimal lineup. But if somebody were to make a mistake, I would like to think that Carlson Harris would be the fighter to make the mistake first, and that Shavkat Rakhmonov could capitalize on a situation like this. 9,000, 7,200 doesn't really project how competitive this fight could be. But I got to tell you that Shavkat Rakhmonov is one of my favorite prospects within the UFC, and I'll be backing him here. But I mean, if you hit Carlson Harris correct, he could land a shot, get a choke, and put anybody out. But it's a Rakhmonov pick for me.
Yeah, I'm with you there. Of course, I mentioned about earlier on the show, this could be a card that I'm going to be using Fantasy Cruncher on and using all the great tools and data we have over at Awesemo.com. If you want to sign up for an Awesemo Plus weekly pass, you can get that for $29.95. Includes full access to all the great premium data and tools we have over at Awesemo.com, including player projections, ownership projections, our premium Discord, lineup builder, and so much more. And if you just want an Awesemo MMA pass, you can get that as low as $2.95 weekly. And of course, as I always say, Fantasy Cruncher, you want to add that on to your account, as that's going to help you out so much. Stop guessing, start winning. Join Awesemo Plus today. Next up, we got a matchup that came together earlier on this week, as Sam Alvey was, of course, going to be on this card. His initial opponent pulling out of the fight due to undisclosed reasons, and now Brandon Allen steps up and at 205 pounds here. Brandon Allen, high price tag, 9,300. Sam Alvey, 6,900. I almost feel like, Pete, it's a situation of friends don't let friends put Sam Alvey in their DFS lineup.
Yeah, until he's priced so cheap, then it's like, man, even one shot from Sam Alvey could end up pulling off. And all he needs to do is win in this situation. He's probably a part of the optimal lineup. But I'm with you. The general consensus is, man, you just go elsewhere besides betting on Sam Alvey. I mean, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. He's on like a 7-fight, 6-fight, winless streak, which is absolutely ridiculous. And he's still within the UFC, company guy. They like him. He'll fight anybody. He's had a full camp, right? And Brendan Allen, to my knowledge, has not had a full camp, obviously, as a replacement. Always training, I would imagine, looking to rebound off of that knockout loss to Chris Curtis in the second round. That was back in December. So it's a little soon to get back in there and against a guy that hits really hard. Now, Sam Alvey just doesn't do enough or do a lot within a fight. And I don't know how many fights he's actually been winning. He's always seems like he's losing the fight until he lands that one shot, which can definitely happen against a guy that has, some striking deficiencies and has, he seems like he's a little soft in the chin area at times. Brendan Allen, as far as skill set wise, the $9,300 represents his skills in this matchup. Significantly the better fighter overall than Sam Alvey. It's just how much trust you have in a guy to go out there at that price tag and pay off. I expect a more measured approach, picking Sam Alvey apart while Sam Alvey really just puts his back to the cage and waits for the perfect counter shot with occasional blitzes. If he goes out there and he fights how he fought Punahele Soriano, I think it's going to be just a nice masterpiece out there. And despite the short camp, 9,300 Brendan Allen, he's going to win the fight in my opinion, but the price tag's a little rich for a guy that's probably going to be a little hesitant.
I love what you brought to the table there with Sam Alvey. This is just, he's not a volume puncher. The last time Sam Alvey landed at least 60 significant strikes, Pete, I'm not even going to ask you to guess because you're not going to guess it right. November 5th, 2016.
Yeah.
He has only landed more than 80 significant strikes one time in his UFC career, Pete. His UFC debut in 2014.
Damn. I mean, if you go through his, record and his resume and you see who he's fought like literally every name. He hasn't had success against most of them, but he's always live to really bust your parlays or spoil it because for some reason, judges, it's always a split decision with him. I think that Brendan Allen should be the rightful favorite and should get in there and just completely outclass him here. And you would imagine it'd be Sam Alvey's final fight within the promotion, but who the hell knows? I'm picking Brendan Allen, obviously.
You look at Sam Alvey's last win, it was a split decision win. And you just kind of, I think that if this is going to be a Sam Alvey win, I do think it's going to be by decision. And I think looking at his win against John Vellante will tell you a lot of what you probably could expect potentially in a DFS score. He had one knockdown, 53 significant strikes, 59 total strikes, no takedowns, no control time.
Yeah. I mean, typically he's not going to go shoot takedowns. He's just going to counterfight, put his back against the cage and hope to land one of those big shots. Pretty difficult to take down at times, but I think a guy in Brendan Allen, if he wants to incorporate takedowns, he absolutely could. They could be hard to come by, but just the complete fighter's Brendan Allen here. And I don't really see it being too competitive.
By the way, Tony, appreciate you letting us know. FanDuel actually just posted their salaries. Okay. FanDuel a little ahead of schedule here. Usually we don't get it here during the show on a Thursday.
It's because everybody from our show is giving them a hard time, and they finally decided, you know what? Let's jump on the ball and get it out there on Thursdays.
Brendan Allen, the second most expensive fighter over on FanDuel, he is $22. Sam Alvey, he is $8.
Yeah, still too rich for me just because I know how Sam Alvey fights are. They're going to get stretched out beyond 2 rounds. And
the other thing is he's like, God, I'm trying to think. He's like Tyron Woodley.
Yes.
He loves to live behind that line to where he's literally one step away from having his back totally against the fence.
Yeah. If he were ever to bite down on a mouthpiece and go forward and be an aggressive guy, he has powerful punches and he has good combinations. He just has to do it. And he seems like a shell of himself.
Yeah. Let's move on. The next match of the card was actually supposed to be the finale of the Ultimate Fighter season 29, but Trizano Gore had to pull out of the fight. He takes on Bryan Battle here. What's your thought, Pete?
I really like this fight. And I feel like, on a fight card like this, people are going to get desperate for underdogs. And whenever you're looking at the box scores and whatnot, you see Bryan Battle's already had a fight within the UFC. And against Urbina, he scored 97 points. But in that fight, he really had to deal with some adversity. He got cracked pretty hard. He got wobbled. He got taken down, controlled for a little bit. And if you knew anything about the season, Urbina he always has a suspect gas tank. So we knew that kind of collapse was coming as the fight went on. But, Bryan Battle really shouldn't have had to deal with too much adversity in that fight. It should have been not a cakewalk, but it should have been like a masterpiece. And I got to tell you that Trizano Gore, despite being raw, I love his killer instinct. He throws that Lima leg kick, like an exceptional lower leg kick, targeting the calf. Good punches, okay wrestling, not really the best. That's where I would say Brian Battle would probably have the edge here. But Battle, likes to stay on the outside and, pick his shots and put combinations together. I just feel like Trizano Gore is too powerful. I really do. I feel like Trizano Gore is going to land a shot or two, and he's going to wobble Battle. And with that unbelievable killer instinct, I think that he could end up getting him out of there. So I don't know if I'm going to be in the minority here, but I'm picking Trizano Gore at 8,300. A lot of people don't like picking somebody with so many unknowns, and we haven't seen him since The Ultimate Fighter. So what has he been doing? How is he looking? Whereas Brian Battle, recency bias, just coming off a win already within the UFC. So I'm favoring Trizano Gore 8,300. I think the price tag for both of them, absolutely perfect. I'll get to both of them plenty, but it's a lean towards Trizano Gore.
Yeah, my lean was Gore as well, just primarily because of that power. I mean, look, the one concern that I do have is the lack of competition that he has faced. Yep. I mean, look, he's only had 4 professional fights. Those 2 fights on the Ultimate Fighter don't count towards your professional record here. But price point wise, I love it at 8,300, 7,900. He's not that expensive over on FanDuel either. He's $17, but I don't mind getting the Brian Battle either. He's $14 over on FanDuel there. But and I do like the fact that both these guys said, like, look, the Ultimate Fighter's in our past. We're not fighting for the Ultimate Fighter 29. This is just another fight in the UFC. I do like what they had to say there. Next up, we have got Julian Erosa taking on Steven Peterson. 9,200 for Julian Erosa, 7,000 for Steven Peterson. And man, when I initially saw the betting line on this one on about a week or two ago, I was like, oh my, big price tag for Julian Erosa. Look, always, there's always have been those questions about Julian Erosa's chin here, but I favor him in the matchup. But it's a big price tag to pay for Julian Erosa.
It's a massive price tag. And like that line is crazy whenever it's associated with Julian Erosa, just because of like, he's a liability sometimes. Like if he gets hit with a hard shot, he can get knocked down. We've seen it time and time again. And then in some situations, his chin is actually okay and it checks out. And, he's picked up some pretty big wins within the UFC in this final piece. Charles Jourdain, Nate Landwehr, Sean Woodson. Those are 3 like solid names that are actually pretty impressive. I still have concerns about his durability, but Steven Peterson, for the most part, is not a guy that makes me worry too much about that. Steven Peterson mixes in takedowns. He likes to win rounds. He tries to just be a little bit more active than his opponents. It's not like Julian Erosa is going in there against another KO artist. It could definitely happen, and anybody can shut anybody's lights out. But I think that Julian Erosa's like skill set wise, if he had like a strong chin, I think that he could actually go pretty far within the division. Just because he's a well-rounded mixed martial artist with tons of experience. You're talking about a guy with, over 35 professional fights, and he has sneaky submissions, and a good, kickboxing arsenal as well. So 9,200 for Julian Erosa. Does he find a finish? That's the one thing. Steven Peterson's a little difficult to get out of there. I'm probably going to say no, he doesn't find a finish. I just expect him to outclass Peterson through 15 minutes. And as far as a betting standpoint, it's just a crazy line to associate with Julian Erosa. I'd probably want to, get a better number than just the money line. I'd want to look into some of the winning methods and like a Julian Erosa via decision or something like that could possibly be a little bit more beneficial to us.
Or live betting type situation. 100%. Maybe Peterson wins early on. I mentioned about there were some lines that were prize picks that stuck out to me. And of course, they are the sponsor of the show. And one of them was related to Julian Erosa. Julian Erosa takedowns, 1.5. I would prefer to go the over 1.5 on that one.
Really? Okay.
I can see him going the takedown route in this one and not and trying to stay away from some of these funky strikes the spinning attacks that Steven Peterson wants to throw.
I feel like he might be the better striker in this. Well, he definitely is the better striker in this situation. And the recklessness of Steven Peterson could pose problems, but like Erosa gets his takedowns when he's like probably getting pieced up. I'm going to say less on that.
Really? We're a little bit different there. Of course, Prize Picks, be sure to use that promo code Awesemo for up to $100 first match deposit bonus. And of course, get 1 free month of Also Plus Platinum when you sign up and make a deposit at Prize Picks. You'll receive an email within 24 to 48 hours after you redeem your first month of Awesemo Plus Platinum. Of course, you can download the App Store, Google Play, or play over at prizepicks.com. Some of the other ones that stuck out to me in terms of Rakhmonov, 1.5 takedowns was another one that kind of played out to me there. But there was some ones over on Fight Time, Pete, that really stuck out to me. One of them was Punahan and Soriano. It's at 10. I think I like the over in that one.
I might agree with you, buddy. I think that's a good one.
Brandon Allen, 12.5. I almost want to say over. That's another one just because of Sam Alvey and kind of his fighting style there. Over on the significant strikes, the one that kind of did stick out to me a little bit was Punahele Soriano at 46.5. The Sean Strickland number is a huge number at 103.5, which to me, that means you're thinking that thing's got to be hitting the 4th and 5th round.
Yeah, I would agree with you. And probably, I mean, Hermansson's been durable at times, and if he keeps it upright, he could end up getting pieced up for 4 or 5 rounds.
Of course, be sure to check out Prize Picks. They are the sponsor here of the Awesemo MMA Strategy Show. Love playing over there at Prize Picks, prizepicks.com to get started today. Let's move on to the next matchup, which will be Miles Johns taking on John Castaneda. Castaneda is a guy that I'm familiar with, trained there out of Minnesota there. Obviously 135 pounders here. What's your thought on this one?
It's an interesting one because like with Miles Johns, I've picked incorrectly in the past. I know that he has some pretty big power for the division, good wrestling for the division, suspect cardio if I really had to put a label on it. And I think in a situation like this, when you're dealing with a guy and you can't get rid of him, that's when obviously you're going to be a little bit more taxed and you're going to have to dig deep in a situation and deal with that adversity. And it comes down to volume for me. And I think that a guy in John Castaneda, if you even look in one round against Eddie Wineland, he landed 42 significant strikes and scored 117 fantasy points. I think that Sexy Mexy John Castaneda might be pretty popular this week due to his experience. And it's not a fight necessarily where I think a finish is going to happen, but I think it could just be a wild affair where the guy with the better cardio could end up pulling it off. And I'm actually going to pick John Castaneda to edge this one out. He seems like he has some crazy, sneaky power as well, getting rid of Eddie Wineland, despite Eddie Wineland being at the tail end of his career. I am going to pick John Castaneda 7,300. I think that the value and the salary ranges are just a little too far. So I look at Castaneda as a nice value piece under 8,000.
I kind of have the same initial thought. It's just kind of a value piece of when you're looking at underdogs this week. Look, there's not a ton of underdogs that just jump off the table at you. So it's like, okay, where am I going to take some chances here? Look, I understand people want to take a chance on like a Sam Alvey with, kind of he just lands that one left hand and knocks it out here. But John Castaneda, you would imagine he's going to be looking for those takedowns, the ability to rack up some points there, rack up some time with control time. But this is where, you got to look at those ownership projections and kind of figure out where you can find a little bit there in terms of that one. Of course, when you look at the one loss that Castaneda has in the UFC, that against Nathaniel Wood, he got pieced up on the feet in that one.
I like Nathaniel Wood. Like, I really do. I really do like Nathaniel Wood. It's a guy I've been pretty high on through his regional run. And, the skills haven't really just translated into the UFC thus far as much as I thought that they would. But John Castaneda is sneaky. He's got sneaky grappling, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu brown belt, just good volume. And I think the volume could be the difference maker here.
Next up, we have got a matchup between Akeem Dawodu and Michael Trizano. 8,500 for Dawodu, 7,700 for Trizano. Like, to me, like Dawodu, I just feel like has burned me so much in DFS. He's gone to a decision in his last 3 fights. He's won 2 of those 3 fights. But when you look at those 2 fights that he won, just, not great from a fantasy perspective.
Yeah, it's not. But I tell you what, both of these guys are in close fights time and time again. And this is going to be a highly competitive fight. And I think that a lot of people are going to want to get to the 7,700 Michael Trizano just because of if it's a close fight, he could end up pulling this one out. I do look at Hakeem Dawodu as a guy who hits with the bigger shots, the more powerful punches. I think if a finish happens, it would more likely be in his favor, finding that KO or ending, probably via KO. And in the grappling department, that's the one area where Trizano could possibly shine and get some sneaky takedowns. So I view this fight as like a high upside fight that I'll put in a good percent of my lineups, but I am leaning in the Hakeem Dawodu direction at 8,500. If this does end up going the distance, I don't think that either one of them are going to make it into the optimal lineup, but it's the lean for, the damaging shots, the powerful punches of Dawodu that I think is going to do enough to influence the judges and possibly work in his favor and pick up a KO, TKO.
I mean, look, I like Dawodu to win the fight. I just, it's that concern of what we have seen with him in the UFC from a fancy perspective.
For sure.
To me, you got to get knockdowns. And like you said, you got to get that stoppage to get there. Next up, we've got a match between Chidi Njokuani and Marc-Andre Barriault. Njokuani 8,000, 8,200 for Marc-Andre Barriault. And Pete, the immediate thing when you look at the tail of the tape that jumps out to you, 80 versus 74. A big size advantage here for Chidi Njokuani in terms of the reach.
Yeah, I might be in the minority here, but I'll tell you what, that I think I'm going to be leading in Chidi Njokuani's direction. And it really surprised me because I've been back in Marc-Andre Barriault in a lot of his fights. And the one thing with Marc-Andre Barriault is he crashes forward a lot and he really just continually presses you backwards. And when you're getting pressed backwards, you're not the same fighter, and he's crashing into clinching range a lot. Now, I feel like he can't be as reckless in a fight like this, where in the past against Dolce Lugambula, Abu Azatar, like all these fights where he's crashing forward and just kind of bullying his opponent, he's not dealing with like high level strikers. And Chidi Njokuani has literally faced some incredible strikers from Joe Schilling to all sorts of talent within kickboxing. And now making the crossover into MMA, has been doing it for some time. He has some solid BJJ as well if it does end up there. But like Barriault crashing into the clinch range, I think is kind of a recipe for a disaster for a knee. Like Njokuani in the clinch, that Muay Thai, that the nice elbows, the nice knees to the midsection. Like a lot of people don't capitalize in situations like this. And I think that, Chidi Njokuani is a guy that could really just brutalize him to the body. So the salaries are correct. 8,200, 8,000, absolutely. I'll probably say that Marc-Andre Barriault is going to be one of the most popular, guys, just because of he has this UFC career and has already picked up some solid wins and performances within UFC and is a part of Sanford MMA. But I'll tell you what, Chidi Njokuani, I think is going to surprise some people. I think he might end up getting him out of there. So at 8,000, I'll be taking the stand on Chidi Njokuani from a DFS aspect, but definitely a fight I want to have pieces of.
And a little update over at Awesemo.com. Ownership projections are now up for this slate, so be sure to check that over there at Awesemo.com and become an Awesemo Plus member. Next up, we got a female matchup between Davis and Stoliarenko. Alexis Davis, 8,700, big number here for Davis. Stoliarenko, 7,500. I've seen some people on social media kind of talk about this one and wondering if this is a sneaky optimal fight.
I mean, the volatility around women's MMA would probably point in the direction of yes. But Yulia Stoliarenko, outside of catching Alexis Davis in a quick submission, I don't really foresee how she's going to outskill Alexis Davis. And let's be real, though. Let's call it how it is. Alexis Davis has 1, 2, 3, 4. She's 1-4 in her past 5. So we're not talking about a fighter at the peak of her career. She's older now. I do think that she did put in a solid performance against Sabina Mazo. Even in her previous performance against Pani Kianzad, Pani wasn't able to get her out of there. And Alexis Davis landed 132 significant strikes, scored 61 points in a loss. She's able to get takedowns and solid control time from top position. And I think that a fighter in Yulia Stoliarenko, who's so comfortable off of her back, could just be losing MMA rounds, right? Like she's just sitting there trying to pull off arm bars after arm bars. And if it doesn't happen, well, she's going to be on the receiving end for a lot of ground and pound. So Alexis Davis at 8,700 initially is something I didn't want any part of, but I agree with you. I think it's a sneaky fight to target where there could be like DFS points galore.
Yeah, I mean, look, I don't see Stoliarenko being able to submit Alexis Davis. I just don't.
I don't
But
either.
I mean, look, armbar from guard is always live in female fights. I mean,
and she's good at it too. It's not like she's just like, all right. Like she's really, really good at her armbar setups. But if I'm in Alexis Davis's corner or part of her camp, we've tailored a lot around armbar defense. And now you're just going to avoid the dangerous positions as much as possible.
Of course, the biggest betting favorite on this card, he's 9,400. Wow, I just see Pete already shaking his head over here. Jonathan Almeida taking on Marques. Almeida 9,400, 6,800 for Marques. UFC debut for Almeida coming in off the Contender Series. Marques, I can't really trust him. You know what? You tell me I got to roster one guy and not the other, I'm definitely rostering Almeida.
I got a question for you.
Oh, God.
Who do you trust more, Sam Alvey or Danilo Marques?
Oh, man. Can I go get a quarter?
Talk about bottom of the barrel, right?
Can I go get a quarter and flip a coin, please?
Who is it?
God, I mean,
it's Marques for me.
Yeah, I'd probably go Marques. But I mean, like you're literally, I mean, you're talking about you're at the bottom of the barrel here, man.
yeah, you are. But okay, so let me just kind of like break this down. 9,400 for a guy coming off a huge Contender Series win. All right. In the Contender Series, he has excellent takedowns, like good body locks, good trips, reaps the leg well, gets in top position, has exceptional ground and pound. Now, I think that his ground and pound is what could lead to a lot of finishes in the future. His fight IQ and his positional awareness is not going to get him to the top of the division or not going to secure wins because he makes a ton of mistakes. Like, despite being a pretty highly regarded Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu practitioner and good grappler, he makes some pretty, like elementary mistakes that I think a guy in Danilo Marques, who's trained under Damian Maia for years and years and years, I think that it's a setup. I'm telling you, it's a setup. At least the odds are a setup and the price ranges. And the reason I'm saying that is Danilo Marques, like, he talks about how, before his MMA career, he had 100+ boxing fights. I did not know that. So you wish those skills would really translate into the MMA cage because he doesn't have the best boxing output. But in a situation where a guy is so muscular in Jonathan Almeida, you wonder how his gas tank is when he cannot find the finish. If you go back and you really dissect his record, it's a lot of submission finishes, occasional ground and pound finishes, which I can definitely see him pulling off, against Danilo Marques here. But you're not submitting Danilo Marques. I don't think so. I think that, if he makes a mistake, a big guy and Danilo Marques can get on top, then he's going to, tax that gas tank a little bit more. And it's just interesting how a guy who's had, multiple UFC fights, 3 UFC fights, not be the favorite against a guy who just looks, uber talented. I'm telling you, I'm going to sprinkle Danilo Marques in X amount of lineups just because I feel like the odds are completely wrong. But as far as upside and skill, there's definitely something there with, Jonathan Almeida, as long as he like refines some of his rawness. And if he has the correct coaches around him, we could see a guy reach his potential. But man, there are some things that I saw on the regional film and also, on the Contender Series that I did not like.
Let me just say this. You got to roster one of these 3 guys.
Okay.
Danilo Marques, Sam Alvey, or Steven Peterson.
Oh, damn, bro.
We're talking the 3 lowest guys because there are going to be, right? There's going to be people who are watching us, listen to us, that are going to say, okay, I'm loading up on some high price guys. I found myself in this range for last man in.
Yeah. I mean,
I might go Steven Peterson.
I would probably say that's the safest of them all. The fighter that probably just naturally is going to get, forgotten. it's going to be Danilo Marques because of the betting lines and all that. But I'll tell you what, I think that it's completely mispriced. So I will say Marques.
I will say this. The one thing I will tell you about when I'm doing my crunches for my 20 maxes for this one, I'm not Xing anyone out. 150 max, I'm not Xing anybody out. There's just not one that I'm sitting there going, there might be some fires I'm going to limit exposure on, but I'm not Xing anybody out.
Sam B says lock in Marques. Hell no. No. So don't misunderstand what I'm saying. I'm saying that the odds are so wrong and that it's a lot for a guy to make his UFC debut. And when you see somebody make a ton of mistakes and his opponent is going to be able to negate some of those skills. Like, yeah, Marques could get taken down, but what happens if, Jailton Almeida gets taken down and he's on his back? Now he's got a guy who's trained with Damian Maia for a very, very, very long time. They called him like the 7-year brown belt or something forever before he was promoted to black belt. So he knows what he's doing as far as jiu-jitsu.
Next up, we got a matchup between Jason Witt and Phil Rowe. Jason Witt, 7,800, 8,400 for Phil Rowe here. I spoke to Jason about 2 weeks ago at this point. And one of the things that I thought was the most interesting is because when you look at what Phil Rowe has been doing, they were supposed to fight back in November. Fight gets canceled, gets moved to this date. Phil Rowe's had a lot of grappling competitions. And I thought it was interesting. I asked Witt, I said, did you go back and did you watch those grappling? And he said, no. He goes, because he's not going to be able to handle my wrestling.
Yeah.
Thoughts from a fighter, when you hear that, what's kind of your thoughts on that?
I mean, I get it. You have to have confidence. Some fighters don't like looking at their opponent's competitions or their fight film. I am a part of the complete opposite. I obsess over it. But I mean, credit to him. He needs to worry about what he has to implement and what he needs to do. But it's going to be a very, very difficult task going up there against Phil Rowe with a massive reach disadvantage. He needs to close the space. And sometimes he's caught in the middle, just, on the receiving end of a lot of punches. And he's been knocked out a lot because of it. Semmelsberger, Soto, Phil Rowe, his takedown defense is completely horrible. I think that it can get better because of his long frame. And that's a skill set where I think can improve over time, and striking defense can improve over time, but being your durability cannot, especially when you've been knocked out multiple times. So I think that the frame of Phil Rowe, I think the length, the striking skills is eventually going to lead to a knockout victory over Jason Witt. However, 7,800 for a guy with some of the best wrestling upside on the card is something to note. So I just view this fight as a volatile fight. But as far as betting, I'll be betting Phil Rowe via KO or Phil Rowe via certain rounds. I think he's going to have to deal with some adversity similar to that Kosei fight and look to come back and punish Jason Witt. I just don't think that Witt's chin can really hold up. But we've seen it, right? Julian Erosa getting knocked out left and right, and then he's able to withstand damage all of a sudden in certain fights. We've seen it with Brendan Allen too. Pretty susceptible to getting hit by big shots, and then goes the distance and outpoints Punahele Soriano. So they just have to land correct, but I'm picking Phil Rowe to win the fight.
Going against James Krause, Jim. Wow. That doesn't happen too often.
It does not happen too often, but
by the way, a little note on James Krause's gym. Leomano Martinez, who fights on next week's UFC card, has been training at Glory leading up to this one. Of course, he trains at Metro Fight Club in Houston. That was Saul Solis's gym. Of course, Saul passed away last year from COVID complications. So you're seeing a lot of guys going from that gym and doing a lot of work at Glory. So actually spoke to Leo Mana yesterday, something that came up there. Also, another guy I spoke to yesterday, a name you probably haven't heard from a while, Austin Salmon.
Oh, damn. What's he doing?
Fight next week at Fury. He's had some injuries. He's now at 45. He's not cutting to 35 anymore. Told me if he can't win next week, it's time for him to start figuring out other things to do in life.
Damn, bro. You don't want to hear that in a fucking, excuse my language. You don't want to hear that in an interview. But I mean, that's my
barely got Tyler to
response.
Move.
Yeah. That's my genuine response, right? Like, you don't want to hear that. That's like 1 foot in, 1 foot out. Definitely do not want to hear that.
Yeah. That's when literally he said that right at the beginning of our interview. I was like, oh, whoa, that's an interesting comment. Wasn't expecting that.
Well, all the best to him. I hope that it works out so he doesn't have to think of that. But definitely something on a UFC card. If we heard that, we would probably be targeting the opposite side.
Yeah, that's always interesting when you hear that. Of course, one of the things that Pete and I love to see, we love to see those screenshots. We had also a team member takedown contest, 2 weeks ago during the UFC show. Of course, what you got to be doing, you got to be rocking that Awesemo avatar on your DFS profile. Place that top 3 of the contest, over 5,000 contestants. Tweet your wins to @Awesemo HOF. You win a free month of Awesemo Plus Platinum. Only 1 free month can be awarded to a user per calendar year. Looking at some of the people that have gone into the Awesemo Hall of Fame here recently, there you have 8 Game taking down 3rd place in an NBA contest over there on FanDuel. Congratulations to you. Also, Austin taking down 2nd place in NBA contest over there on DraftKings. Also, Praz taking on a contest over there as well, taking down 1st place, winning $1,500 over there in the NBA. Also, a KC taking down 2nd in a NHL contest. Also, Kyle taking down 2nd place in an NHL contest as well. Another NHL winner, Bradley, taking down a 1st place contest. Congratulations to all of you that have gone into the Awesemo Hall of Fame here over the past couple of days. NBA is a tough DFS sport. I'm just saying. You can take down 1st place in NBA contest. You're doing something right.
For sure. And I'm a little annoyed that I haven't been able to play as much NBA as I normally would be at the gym. You know how it is with NBA. You need to find that last bit of news. And if you miss out on that news, you could end up with some stinker lineup. So I've been playing a little light and a little bit more of late night stuff and betting wise. But man, do I miss playing my full NBA slates.
That's why you got to have those score notifications on so you know when breaking news happens in the NBA.
I'm holding pads and hold on. Hold on, guys. I'll be right back. I got to go sub out my people.
Hey, I get hold your pads. Sorry, I got to go over here. I got to change my lineup because my guy's out. That'd be hilarious. Maybe you just need an assistant.
Hey,
that's monitoring notifications, and like they've got the laptop up going, they've got the CSV ready to go to do your swaps.
We're on to something, Jason. I think we're gonna definitely.
Is that in the Rogers? Is that in the Rogers mixed martial arts budget?
It will be. It for sure will be. Absolutely.
Of course, we got NBA Deeper Dive will be the next show live here at Awesemo today, 5:00 each time. So keep it locked here. Of course, we got one more matchup, and Pete, to me, this is a matchup that I kind of feel like it's set up for one fighter and not set up for the other fighter. I believe this might be Malcolm Gordon's actually final UFC fight on his contract. So I think you should tell you that there. Denny's 9,100. I think the question is just, do you want to get there at that price tag?
I do. I think that he is. He might be my favorite 9,000 option. And the reason I say that is because of the concerns about Jailton Almeida. If he can't get a finish, Brendan Allen, Julian Erosa, Rakhmonov in a very, very competitive fight. Denise Bondar looks like a guy that can definitely pick up a finish, and against a guy in Malcolm Gordon who's been chinny throughout his career. He can't really take damage well, not really durable. When he's able to mix in takedowns and get in top position, he can solidify rounds and win that way, and as long as the fight gets stretched out. But anytime there's an exchange or some combinations thrown, you worry about him getting cracked and dropped. And I think a guy in Denise Bondar is just going to have the answer everywhere. He has good ground and pound, good skills everywhere. I think that Malcolm Gordon could look like a deer in headlights, but obviously you don't really know how a fighter's going to respond in their UFC debut. Tons of octagon jitters. Certain fighters don't feel it. Certain fighters just go in there and business as usual. I think that Bondar is in an excellent spot here. This is a layup, and I think that Bondar should shine here and end up getting 100 points for us.
Yeah, and Gordon's one of those guys. It's a limited exposure for me.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I if he wins, obviously, like he's probably going to be a part of the optimal lineup. It's just going to be, a lot of uphill sledding. Like it's going to be very difficult for him to pull this off against Bondar.
Before we get into your questions, we'll give our straight up fight picks, not DFS related here. Main event, give me Sean Strickland.
Strickland for me.
Co-main event, I will go Punahele Soriano.
Same. Puna.
I would go Rakhmonov over Harris.
Rakhmonov.
I'm pretty sure we're going to agree here on Brandon Allen.
Yeah, Allen.
Oh, you gave me that look like you might. Were you about to say Sam Alvey?
Hell no, I was definitely
Okay.
not. It's just,
You had that weird look going.
nah,
I will go. I will go Gore over Battle in the Battle of the Ultimate Fighter alums.
there you go, Trizano Gore.
Give me my guy Juicy J.
Yeah, Erosa for me as well.
Miles John Castaneda. I'll go Miles Johns.
Okay, I'm going Castaneda.
I'll take Dawodu over Trizano.
Dawodu.
I'm going to go Njokuani because of that reach advantage.
Yeah, Njokuani. I'm surprised you're doing that.
I'll go Alexis Davis. I think it's a sneaky play.
Same
because of
Alexis
her
Davis.
salary. Give me Almeida. I can't trust no Marques.
For the hell of it, I'm gonna just pick Marques. Let's do it.
All right, here's a tough one for me.
Is it really? Legitimately tough one?
Got a good relationship with Jason Witt. Got to go over Jason.
Oh, you got to.
So you know what? I'm going my guy. I'm don't feel great about it, but going with my guy Jason Witt.
All right, I am going against your guy Phil Rowe.
And Bondar will be the pick in the first fight.
Bondar as well.
That's tough. That you know, man. We got good relationship in this game, and that's one of the hardest things, man.
Yeah, it's a very difficult thing. It's one thing if like, especially because like we're out in the public and we're saying things, you know what I mean? And I'm sure like Stephen A. Smith or Shaq or Charles Barkley, like they have these same situations where they want to be fair, but they also have relationships outside or friendships. You know what I mean? Like it's tough.
Let's just say Calvin Cater keeps receipts because I saw him on an interview after his fight going, yeah, I saw you pick against me to another reporter.
Yeah, well, good. Well, hopefully he listened to our show and he realizes that we were backing him.
Let me get a mention a question from the score we got before the show from 1.6. He says, who's going to take down City?
Ooh, it's a good question, man. Who's going
I think here's your candidates. If Jason Witt's going to win, he's taking Phil Rowe to take down City.
Totally agree. Probably the best upside on the slate.
You know, I do expect Almeida Marques to hit the ground, but I just don't know if that's going to be a situation where it's a ton of takedowns.
Mm-hmm.
I think you got to look at the Johns Castaneda fight as another takedown City candidate.
Yes, I think that could be tough. I think Alexis Davis like may not necessarily get like endless takedowns, but like a couple with tons of control time, and that's kind of basically the same thing. So I'm going to say Alexis Davis is going to take Stoliarenko to take down City.
And then you got to look at the two underdogs in the main event, co-main event. That is their path to winning.
For sure. Jack Hermansson needs to take Strickland to take down City, or else he's going to get bullied throughout 5 rounds.
And who is throwing them bungalows? Well, Phil Rowe win. He's throwing them bungalows.
Strickland, number 1.
Yeah.
Puna, number 2.
Njokuani.
Trizano Gore, Njokuani. Yeah. Like all these guys are like really solid strikers. So definitely
very much
walk
so
into a bonus.
Of course, got a couple more minutes left of the show. We'll try to get some of these questions that came in throughout the show here. Now I saw a couple over here in the YouTube chat that stuck out to me. Maximov, Trizano, or Castaneda coming from Tony?
It's a good question. And I think that's going to be a difficult one for a lot of people to decide between. Maximov probably has the most upside of everybody right there, but I'm going to pick Castaneda to pull out the victory.
A question from Casey over in Discord. Which favorite to fade?
Might be that, not fade, but let's see. Let's rank these. I might say Brandon Allen, and it's not a fade because he's going to win the fight. It's just a score fade. You know what I mean? Like he's probably not going to pay off that 9,300 price tag.
Yeah, no question. No question. By the way, Spencer, FanDuel has their salaries have come out. They came out actually here during the show. Liking at MVP over on FanDuel. I think it kind of goes along the same fires that Sean Strickland has a chance to really rack up some points over there. You know, Man, if FanDuel still had those takedown defenses, he would be like, a key component over MVP. Of course, they don't have that anymore. Other ones that I would probably look at that I feel kind of, pretty good about. Bondar, I think, is one that I'd really look at.
Yeah, I really like that call. I expect him to get a finish.
Yeah. And Abram, by the way, be expecting an email on that. If you don't get that in the next 24 to 48 hours, just hit up Awesemo and we'll have somebody get in contact with you. But that is going to do it for this edition of the Awesemo MMA Strategy Show. Of course, thank you to our sponsor, Prize Picks. Of course, we'll be back here on Saturday, live before lock. I believe we're on at 3 p.m. Eastern time, 1 hour right before the fights will lock there. So keep it locked here all day long. Of course, coming up here later on today, we got the NBA Deeper Dive. So that is going to do it for this edition of the Awesemo MMA Strategy Show. We will talk to you on Saturday for live before lock. Have a good day, everybody.